So when I first started writing stories, writing fiction, everybody was telling me that I needed an outline for all of my stories. Whether it was a YouTube video, articles, or friends that I knew who were writers, everybody told me you gotta outline your story before you even think about drafting it. And I did that at first. I outlined everything. It was very helpful, kept me structured, kept me moving forward, motivated. I knew what I was going to do next. I outlined the first I outlined my first novel, Liar's Legacy, and outlined the first two Aeon Chronicle novellas, and it was handy, but I found myself constricted. I felt like my creativity was stifled. I'm an author. I should know the correct pronunciation of this word. Um, it was limited. It was inhibited. I couldn't stretch my creativity where I wanted it to be because I already had a set concrete plan, and I couldn't deviate from that. Otherwise, I wouldn't know what to write next. So I started experimenting a little. I found out that people pants stories as well. There's plotters and there's pantsers. Pantsers just go into a story without an outline. They'll do some prep work sometimes. I don't think Stephen King did any prep work, but some pantsers do prep work, and then they'll just dive into their story and just start writing about whatever they want to write about. And so I decided I would give that a shot, and that's how I wrote Fossil. And I had a great time. I really enjoyed the spontaneity of it, and I loved writing just without outline, just freedom all the way, and it was fun. Um, so I kind of want to give some tips on writing without an outline, kind of how I write my process, and maybe it'll help you. Maybe it'll still help you even if you do write with an outline. Just kind of being efficient, keeping writer's block away, and making sure you hit your word count goal every day. So when I start writing a book, I start with just a basic idea. I know the concept, I know who the main character is going to be, and I kind of understand what the story is going to look like. It's a very general, very broad idea that I can tweak as I go, and it's nothing is set in stone. But I know the core of the story, I know the concept, and from there I can form themes and I can form a beginning. And after I form the beginning, that's where I kind of figure out the general idea of what the end's gonna look like, because the beginning usually presents the end, because the beginning is the promise. It's what it's where the character decides, hey, this is what I'm going to work towards, and this is my end goal. So I sometimes start with the beginning. I usually start at the end. I kind of develop what the end's going to look like before I start figuring out what the beginning's going to look like, just because I know what the character's main goal is, so I know like where the final emotional climax is going to be. Because to me, endings are what make or break a story. I can start a story and it can have a good ending, it can have an okay ending, but if that climax doesn't hit that high and it doesn't squeeze all the drama out of the conflict, then I'm not hooked. I'm not going to enjoy the story as much as I would. That's a big problem with me with when it comes to stories. So I usually I like to start with the end. I like to figure out what that looks like before I start with the beginning and start making promises about what the end looks like. Again, nothing is set in stone. The ending can change any way that I need to as I write the story, but I have an idea of what it's going to look like, what it's going to cost the main character to get what they want, and what exactly it is that they want. So then after figuring out the beginning and the end, I start drafting. This is where the middle kind of comes together. I just start throwing obstacles in front of the characters, watching them struggle as they try to reach the end of their journey, and watching them adapt, change, react, things like that. So this is where things get a little more complicated. It's where writer's block can really kick in, and things get a little more difficult. So when it comes to writing that muddy middle, I find it's a lot easier than a lot of people say it is. That's just my experience. I know a lot of people have a hard time writing the middle, writing it longer, getting to that novel length. I know I used to, but now with the book that I'm writing now, right now, the sequel to Fossil, I'm finding that I'm starting to overwrite a little bit, and it's getting a little bit longer than I wanted it to, but that's okay. So when it comes to the middle, if you find yourself dragging your feet, if you aren't sure where the characters should go, if you're not sure what the next scene should look like, I like to take Raymond Chandler's advice and just have a man with the gun enter the room. Not always literally, but sometimes literally. It depends on the kind of story you're writing. But I like to have just an obstacle throw itself in front of the main characters, kind of keep them from achieving their goal. Because usually when I hit these writer's blocks, it's because the characters just have a straight shot towards their goal, towards their end, and there's nothing stopping them from just ending the story right then and there. And so there's no reason to create conflict because there is no conflict to create. So I usually throw in a twist or an obstacle in the way that they have to work around, they have to fight against, and figure out how to get back to where they were or how to get around this obstacle. And it makes things more interesting, more dramatic, and it makes the characters have to work harder and sacrifice more to get where they want to go. And I always find that always helps with my writer's block. I'm sure it'll help with yours. It just takes a lot of practice, as all writer's block is just figuring out how to write stories more efficiently and things like that. So after all of that, after figuring out what the ending is going to look like, then writing then writing the beginning, the middle, and then finishing up the end, writing it out, drafting it. That's when I start to edit. Editing for me mostly looks like just correcting sentence structure and grammar, but it also looks like making it look like I knew what I was doing the whole time. This might include adding some sprinkles of foreshadowing, might include correcting some continuity errors, just fixing up character development, things like that. I don't like rewriting. That just makes me feel like I'm retelling the story over again, even though I just told the story. So I tend to avoid rewriting as much as I can. It takes up a lot of time, a lot of energy, and it's just boring. It's not enjoyable to me. So I like to just fix it up where I can. I'll sometimes rewrite like a paragraph or so, but I don't ever rewrite a whole scene. I like to keep the scene in there or cut it out entirely, whichever one works best. Just making sure that I tweak things just the right way, because usually the plot is pretty solid. It's just the characters that need a little bit of help, and sometimes there are some plot issues that I need to work out, but that usually just means I have to introduce things earlier than I thought I needed to, or explain something a little more detailed than I thought I needed to, so the reader kind of understands a little more what's going on, why this worked, why this didn't work, things like that. I think the biggest problem that a lot of people might have with writing without an outline is remembering where you left off. You don't really want to reread your old work, because then you start to think, oh, this stinks, I need to edit this, I need to fix this, but you're still in the drafting phase. You're not in the editing phase yet. You don't need to fix anything right now. What you really need to do is just write as quick as you can and get all your ideas out and finish that story. But it can be kind of hard to do that when you don't remember what happened last. So I do a couple of things. Sometimes I'll just reread the last sentence just to kind of make sure I know when I left off. I kind of keep track of where I am in the story by writing consistently and just writing regularly. That way I just wake up the next day knowing exactly what I need to write next, because I know where the scene's going. I never leave a writing session not knowing where the story's going to go next. I always sit at my desk, sit at my laptop, and figure it out, set something up before I leave my writing session, because otherwise I'm going to come to my desk and I'm going to sit down on my iPad, I'm going to open up my file, I'm going to start my timer, and I'm going to stare at a page with no words on it and have no idea where to go next. So I always make sure I leave the writing session knowing how something is going to lead into the next scene or what the next scene is going to look like. So a good way of doing this, I find, is by ending a writing session in the middle of a sentence. And I mean that literally. Don't finish the sentence. As soon as your timer's up, as soon as you've hit your word count, stop writing. It doesn't matter if you're, unless you're in like a flow state where you're just really productive and you're moving and you don't want to quit, that's fine. Just keep writing. But always, always, always end in the middle of a sentence. It works for me. I don't know if it'll work for you. It might. It probably will. I would recommend trying it out. But if it doesn't work for you, that's fine. It doesn't work for everyone. But yeah. So ending in the middle of the sentence, because kind of, I go back and I read like that half sentence that I have, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is where I am, and it picks up right where I was the last time, and I get that train of thought going right back again. And it's very, very helpful. It saves a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of energy, things like that. And kind of like what I was talking about earlier, planning ahead of time before you start drafting can be very helpful. Not plotting, but kind of understanding your story world, your concept, the mechanics of a magic system or a technology, and understanding kind of who your characters are and what they want. That can be very helpful in writing a story. Because if you just sit down and start writing an idea, just start going, once upon a time there was a man named Bob, that's not going to get you very far. You need to understand what you're writing about. You need to understand what you're going to say before you start to say it. This might look like an outline that you just abandon later. This might look like a quick one-page, one-paragraph summary of the story, or might look like just a little concept, just like a name, a goal, and then what's stopping them from getting that goal. That's all you really need. Just as long as you do some kind of planning before you start writing your story. I have started plenty of novels. I haven't finished as many as I have started, but there was one that I plan on going back to where I didn't plan adequately because I didn't understand where I wanted the character to go. I had a beginning, I just didn't have the middle or the end. So I had no goal that my character was pushing towards. So I need to fix that and figure out how to get my character to progress towards something and figure out what that something is before I start working on that story again. So that way it stays focused and I can stay consistent and I write efficiently and the story is tight, it's gripping, and it's moving. And the reader feels that progress and they understand that progress and they don't want to put it down because every single sentence is moving towards that end goal. So this, in my opinion, is the most exciting way to write a story. Freeing myself from outlines was the best decision writing-wise I've ever made. Easy. It's so much more fun to write spontaneously, figure out a story as you go. I don't feel like I'm writing. It's not like work to me. It's the same as watching a show or reading a book of my own. Just experiencing the story as it plays out. And that's interesting to me. It's more fun that way. And I get to share it with you guys, so that's a whole lot more fun. This is just my way of writing. It's my entertainment, and I'm super passionate about it. So I get to share it with all of you guys, share it with the world, and just have a good time. Because writing is supposed to be fun. Writing isn't supposed to be work, unless you're writing a newspaper or something. But writing fiction is supposed to be fun. So make it fun, you know? Don't take it too seriously. Just have a good time with it. You don't need an outline unless you just are one of those people that do, in which case, write an outline. I'm not saying you shouldn't ever write an outline. I'm not saying it's for everyone. I'm just saying that for those who feel like an outline is constricting them, don't use an outline. You don't need an outline. Really, all you need to write a book is an idea, a beginning, and an end, and a character. You need a character, because an idea isn't anything without a character. But anyways, point is, that's really all you need to write a story. A lot of people overcomplicate this. They try to sell you their 10-step course to writing a novel, but really all you need is just all the free resources online. The point is, you don't need an outline. You just need to understand storytelling fundamentals, have an idea, sit down and have fun. So, hope this helped you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all later. Y'all take care.